will be recorded. The session will be recorded, so I ask you to stay muted to every participant, and with your cameras off if that's what you want, if you don't want to be recorded. I also ask you to stay like that until the Q&A session. If you like to put some questions, just wait for the end of the presentation, and we have a special time for that. So enjoy our webinar, and welcome.
So thank you very much, Ines. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Today, we are going to have a webinar on IoT Internet of Things Marketplace for secure hyper-connected city data, which is an outcome of the MSec project. So more or less what Ines said reflects the recording of the webinar today, so that we have a chance to go back and see again some things of this discussion for you, for your own reference. And please keep your microphone muted during the presentation. We are going to have a Q&A session at the end, and we are going to be very happy to receive your questions and your interest on this. As you all know, what we call as a term a marketplace is going to be is going to have a very dominant role in the future data markets, in the sense that we see Internet of Things sensors rolling out, and all those different data streams are very important for facilitating future use cases, especially in the context of smart cities. So what we're going to see today, how we have structured the meeting today, is we're going to have a brief overview of the MSec project, so that you are aware of what it is about, the different use cases that it supports. And then we're going to have an overview of the MSec specific Internet of Things Marketplace, what kind of different technical details it has, and what kind of further applications it contains, some scientific achievements that are being based on the different middleware services that we as ICCS have developed, and can be considered as part of the research work that the project has done. And of course, a demonstration, so that you see also the hands-on, you have a hands-on view on the different aspects of this Internet of Things Marketplace. And as I said, we will be very happy then to receive your questions and have an interactive session covering different aspects that you would like to share with us. So as a very brief description, the MSec project, perhaps you have also joined the webpage of our project, is actually a project that brings together different partners in security and smart city platforms from Europe and Japan. You can see that it's part of the EU-Japan collaboration topic that it had. And from the European side, we have partners like F-Success, CEA from France, Municipality of Santander, TST, a small medium enterprise from Spain as well, Worldline, who is also the coordinator, and ICCS, where we are a research institute from Athens, Greece. At the same time, from Japan, there is a set of different partners, universities and companies like NTT East, K University, NII. There was at the university, the Yokohama National University, and NTT Data, which is another sister company of NTT East, mainly involved with the data consulting services. What are the goals of the project? So the title cannot say many things, but the MSec comes from the multi-layered security technology, an end-to-end secure Internet of Things platform where we plan to research and develop in order to ensure cybersecurity in the hyper-connected smart cities, upon which all the stakeholders can build innovative smart applications on top of it. So more or less, we use innovative technologies in our smart city solutions, like for instance, cloud technologies, Internet of Things technologies that have to do with the smart devices themselves and how we can connect them there. And at the same time, we deploy frameworks for end-to-end security, for different security primitives that have to do, for instance, with data privacy, and of course, blockchains as an enabling technology, as a distributed ledger technology, which can facilitate the integration of the different devices and the exchange of value over a distributed ledger technology, over, let's say, tokens or the new forms of cryptocurrency that actually we see that is gaining a significant momentum in the whole spectrum of Internet of Things, and not only. So our mission is to lay the foundation for the adoption and creation of new Internet of Things security standards and mechanisms, and actually create a decentralized ecosystem of Internet of Things, or where we can actually validate the viability and sustainability of different smart city related applications. So actually, the idea, to put it in a nutshell, of the MSec project is to create all those technologies and integrate them in such a way to enable the hyper-connected smart city and the facilitation of different smart city applications, but not as it is with other related projects, like for instance, putting emphasis on the applications themselves, but rather on how we can have in this hyper-connected environment also an end-to-end security framework, covering all the aspects that are present in this value chain. So to this end, we define, design, and implement this novel marketplace, actually the Internet of Things marketplace, where smart objects can exchange information, energy services through the use of virtual currencies, and trying to create these liquid markets of data as we would like them to have. We have two different smart cities participating in those pilots and the use cases, where my colleague professor is going to say later on a few words. The one is in Fujisawa in Japan, and the other is in Santander, Spain, trying to show at the same time the applicability of our solution in those two different contexts and the two different continents. For we have 5 unique use cases, not only use cases applicable in one particular context, like for instance in one of the 2 smart cities, but also trying to have this cross-border collaboration between the entities participating, so that we can show the applicability of the MSec results. So we are going to be 4 speakers today. It's me, Antonis Litke, George Paleokrasas, Orpheas Voutiras, and Peter Skoufis. We are 4 colleagues from the Institute of Computer and Communication Systems. It's a research institute in Athens. And we are happy to be here and present you the results of the project and of our work. So just to have a brief overview of the marketplace, of course, more are going to be detailed later on. What is this Internet of Things marketplace? It's actually a place to exchange sensor data captured from Internet of Things devices and captured also through other forms of media, like for instance, smartphones, where people would like to use this information, this data that have been captured, to share with each other. And at the same time, what we are trying to do is to provide what is called a liquid market, in the sense that, okay, this should be easy to be done in terms of trying to bring supply and demand of this data into foreground. We consider, as already said, Internet of Things devices and humans using mobile applications as a source of data. And for these reasons, we develop also the dedicated application programming interfaces, so that those devices can exchange data and consequently value in a more complex value chains through the MSec blockchain-based implementation. We are deploying a quorum-based blockchain. It's several nodes that we have deployed in ICCS here, but also at the same time facilitating this blockchain through the Alastria network, where we have a chance to describe later on some of the details. And of course, the different smart contracts that come together with the different decentralized application services we have built, the web application interfaces, so that all those users are being part of the big picture. At the same time, as you understand, various other modules should be present, and we have the chance to say a few words later on and see how they are present. Like, for instance, services and tools that have to do with the data handling on-chain and off-chain part of data. Assets that have to do with what we call know your customer, because we said we would like to share value, but when sharing value and comes into play, and if you are familiar with the cryptocurrency world, the know your customer part is very important, so that whoever exchanges value should be there, should be identified in some way, but not through restoring personal data or privacy sensitive information. Various aspects that have to do with integration of different platforms. On one side, for, as said, existing platforms like, for instance, Sensenact and Secure Soxfire, where different Internet of Things devices are pushing or let's say pulling different forms of data, and all this kind of stuff should be somehow integrated into something which is coherent. So as you understand, there is a complex architecture here as well, and for this reason, in order to be more interactive, I would like to invite my colleague Orfes to say a few words about the different architectural implications that come with this, the way that we try to build the marketplace. Orfea?
Thank you very much, Antonis. As Antonis suggested, in order to have it more as a discussion and interactive, we will switch quite a little bit between the several speakers that were presented. Of course, at the end of this session, you will have all the time you need to ask any questions and for us to give you answers. So, as Antonis already suggested, MSec has as a main research objective to tackle security threats in multiple layers. And you can get an idea of those multiple layers in the middle bottom figure, where you can see the several layers that are being identified, and we will also analyze in the next slide. So the concept here, not yet, sorry, Antonis. So the concept here is that as a first step, we have to follow some standard procedures that are, of course, followed in all of the research projects, but also in the development line of several software solutions or cloud solutions and the such. So the first step is to get requirements from the end users. The thing here is that quite a lot of security, let's say, specific requirements cannot be recognized by the regular end user or the final end user and the citizen. So requirements in this case refer to both requirements, functional requirements that are being identified by the final end user, the one that will be using an application, for example, but also requirements have to be extracted by infrastructure or software as a service providers and so on. So the other user that has to be taken under consideration will be the one that will be facilitating these applications. And in this sense, it's where we identify specific security solutions that have to be tackled, both on the hardware side and on the software side. So on the left, we have some tables, which are, of course, too small to read, but give you an idea of the analysis that has been followed. It's a standard procedure for requirements identification and analysis on the background. And on the foreground figure on the left with the colored cells, you can also see threats and risks indicative section of the corresponding spreadsheet we use, where we identify the criticality, the probability of the risk to appear, and of course, the corresponding tools that MSec has to use in order to face and tackle this risk. Of course, when we refer to threats and risks, in this case, we are all security threats. Most of you may already have in mind some specific attacks, such as DDoS, distributed denial of service, Sybil attack, in the case of blockchain-specific ecosystems, let's say, or ones that are based on popularity-focused mechanisms, let's say. So the first step was to identify what needs to be built and not to have a research for the sake of research per se, but also what are the final requirements for the solutions to be provided to actually be used at the end. The next step from our side was the MSec architecture, which you can see in the middle, which is the layered approach we followed in order to identify a multidimensional, let's say, categorization of the several tools we would have to develop. I will get into the specifics for this in the next slide. And finally, the last exercise was for us was to get the architecture from a conceptual level to an actual development level, where we had to identify the several integration points between the several components, what has to be connected with what, in order to connect all these boxes that you see in the middle, and how to connect them and make an efficient system at the end. Because it's all good and nice to have several fragmented components, but each one of them faces specific security attacks. But at the end of the day, you have to also provide an integrated and end-to-end solution, because, of course, the system is as secure and strong as the weakest link of the system. So yes, thank you, Antonis. Going on forward with the architecture as a whole, on the top you can see in a little bit more detail the whole architecture. You can identify 4 layers. These are more related to infrastructure, let's say, layers. So it's about where or for what level the tools are being working for. So we have the IoT layer at the bottom, which is focused on devices. Then we would have something called middleware layer. It's not the best name, but it's the best one we could come up with, which is about solutions that are in the middle of the IoT layer and the higher cloud layer. So that's where we decided to also categorize tools that would run on VNs or in a distributed manner. And this is, of course, the case of blockchain. Then the third layer is the cloud layer, and the final one would be the application layer, one to run again back to the end users on mobiles, for example, and so on and so forth. Apart from the several layers, you will also identify several other light blue, let's say, curved boxes. These are what we call functional groups, following the IoTA architectural reference model. And these functional groups identify components that provide similar functionalities. So, for example, we have a functional group that is focused on secured and trusted storage. So this includes more than one component. On the one side, it includes the blockchain, which is for distributed, let's say, applications and storage. And on the other hand, it includes also services that provide encryption for databases. And the integration point that I mentioned before is how to couple this more centralized, let's say, storage solution with the ones on the blockchain. And on the right, you can also see an end-to-end security functional group that, of course, has to cover all of the components. I don't think we need to cover anything else. We could get more technical into the specifics in the Q&A. Thank you, Antonis.
Thank you, Orfea. So some, let's say, more technical things now, trying to dive into this, because as Orpheus said, in this very complex architecture, what we would like to do, as you can see here, on the application level, we have the marketplace, but it is what we consider as the part of the front end, because as you can see, in this layered approach, the marketplace dives into a particular functionalities that have to be present in the middleware layer, what we call as middleware, where actually it's the glue between the Internet of Things layer, data layer, and of course what we expose as functionality to this service, to this application service. So this is the reason why you see also the blockchain is a very important aspect that we would like to use as an enabler for how this integration is achieved, and this is also what we are going to say a little bit later on this on the way of the integration. So the blockchain actually in practice and how this is going to look. What is important to say is that, okay, when we're trying to consider what kind of blockchain to use, there are different choices, but there, for instance, where we concluded to use, let's say, as a basis of the blockchain is the Ethereum-based blockchain, where we have experimented there with different aspects, especially on how the smart contracts are being implemented. Exactly for the reasons of having a blockchain that can use smart contracts. Nowadays, it's more evident that, okay, there are a lot of more private blockchains if you prefer for different vendors or different communities, like IoT, Internet of Things related blockchains. But I mean, at the conceptual level of the when the MSec project was being conceptually formulated, the choices were not as many, especially if we consider that we would like to have on one side solid blockchains with community, with an open source community that supports, but at the same time give you the flexibility to do things on that. So, for instance, the full spectrum of the way that you can build tokens, or on the security aspects, or also the performance and speed, it was the Ethereum blockchain was a very basic choice for us to use, so that we build also the different smart contracts in this what we call as Ethereum as a very big, let's say, programmable blockchain that you can use for your own purposes. At the same time, the different APIs and the ways to connect to Ethereum was something very important, because Ethereum is not only having the real Ethereum network where the cryptocurrency Ether is being shared, but also different test networks and also local networks where someone can actually experiment. And the big idea was, okay, let's experiment with our test network, see how we can build things, and then through Ethereum, someone can later on generalize, make it more public, and incorporate more people. And you know, lately there is also in Ethereum a lot of discussion, a lot of developments for further decentralizing things, for further optimizing things, and also increase the usability of the specific blockchain. As you understand, one of the important aspects was also to create a token. Why token? Because, as we already said, we would like to share value between the different actors and stakeholders in this community. So we created a smart contract, actually a token in Solidity programming language, which is actually an ERC20 token following the specific standards. And what we would like there to have is, of course, to have a token for trust purposes, for exchange this value for in our MSec related network and blockchain. But at the same time, as you understand, methods were necessary for defining the supply, the balance of the different, let's say, owners of this token, methods for transferring amount, because we said we would like to consider this sharing of value, and of course a full spectrum of different further methods and events that were there in order to facilitate the different use cases we're going to see. At the same time, however, we've seen that there was a further development on different permission blockchains that could have the different features of Ethereum, but at the same time give us also room for experimenting in a permissioned environment, a closed environment, where access is being, let's say, more controlled. This was the Quorum blockchain. Quorum is a project of JP Morgan, the bank giant, who actually would like to have a dedicated decentralized ledger technology to experiment with on the basis of different smart contracts. So there we found some very nice similarities because it's actually a private Ethereum-like blockchain. So you have all the benefits of the permission. It allows certified members only to build and run the decentralized applications. It's an open source blockchain, ideal for us in our case. And also there are methods and tools to build privacy-based smart contracts, while at the same time enable the transparency on those transaction-level privacy and network-wide methods that are necessary in order to build relevant applications, as we had the vision to do in MSec. Moreover, Worldline, who is the coordinator, is a part of the Alastria network, which is a big network initially based on a Quorum blockchain, but nowadays expanding into other forms of blockchains, like for instance Hyperledger, Corda, and so on, which is actually an industrial level and with many participants, production level blockchain that can run also Quorum, so that we can facilitate hundreds actually of different nodes, so that we have a valid production level blockchain through which we can experiment. This is the reason why also Quorum was an ideal solution, because at the one side we can experiment with permissioned private blockchain, but at the same time in a large scale that can facilitate the different aspects that we would like to have. So coming into this, how the Internet of Things Marketplace looks like. Of course, you'll have the chance to see also the demo, but you know, some things are hidden inside the demo and are not necessarily visible. So as already said, as you can see, this blockchain that we have simply described here is the basis for sharing the data between the different participants in this ecosystem. So what are the building blocks? On one side, Node-RED, which can facilitate, and George can say a few words later on this, can facilitate the different workflows that are necessary to achieve the functionality for the specific use cases we would like to have. The smart contracts, as I said, so besides the MSec token, different smart contracts that are necessary for registering sensor, recording different transactions for Internet of Things sensor data sending. And of course, smart contracts that have to do with what we call smart city wide, let's say, handling of data, where data sources can be registered, can be shared, and can exchange this value. So not getting into much details because you are going to see it later on. In the sensor, all those sensors that we would like to bring into the marketplace, there are roles, stakeholders, like for instance, who is the owner and how he registers the specific sensor in the Internet of Things marketplace, how to define the location of data, and how actually define how you would like to move those data in a decentralized context. This is the reason why we have deployed solutions like IPF, the interplanetary file system, or the different APIs that allows the sensor data owners to exchange those data. Of course, where to store actually data, because you know there are also those privacy issues, and how we can manage to use blockchain where the transactions are totally written in this decentralized ledger for a lifetime, and at the same time keep privacy issues, because you don't want to store permanently data without having the ability to remove them as necessary. In that context, the marketplace that we've built is actually based on alastria nodes on quorum related blockchain. There is a significant connection with the alastria network as already described, and all those different smart contracts so the different challenges that were there in place with respect to the middleware integration. So how to expand, for instance, the smart contract functionalities so that they're not only applied in different nodes that are there, but also have further interface and connection points with other third parties, software modules that were there. What kind of features the different blockchains provide, as said, in order to ensure the privacy and security? You don't forget that, okay, the one challenge is to integrate things, but the other challenge is to keep things safe through privacy and security mechanisms. And although there is the notion that, okay, blockchains can increase the trust in the sense of, encryption things and confidentiality between the sharing of data, but at the same time, don't forget that all the transactions are visible to all the participants in the network, or at least through quorum to those where you create your own channels and see who can have access on the specific transaction set. So the anonymity, for instance, over the centralized network, which was a very big challenge for this reason. So for the different assets that have been developed for this region is a big set of different Solidity smart contracts that we have created, the web applications and the different interfaces, along with, as said, with the Node-RED application services that enable the workflow enactment and orchestration of different functionalities. And of course, what we call the blockchain middleware services, where you can see another spectrum of functionalities, which already described, like the know your customer, the account manager, and upload handler. So who is responsible for uploading this kind of content on blockchain? And of course, last but not least, the trade-off between the on-chain and off-chain data handling through the IPFS. An important aspect, for instance, when trying to integrate things, was actually to try to see how this can be integrated with existing components that other partners are bringing. Just to give an example here, we had the challenge to integrate our own marketplace with the Soxfire solution. So the security Soxfire is actually a publish subscribe platform provided by the KU University, where the different, as you can see here, Internet of Things sensors or crowd sensors, in the sense that there are users with mobile devices capturing data, taking some pictures, how this matching between the publish subscribe on one side with the data creators to the different applications that are there is necessary in order to have this into the marketplace. So a new component that we developed actually facilitate this integration among Soxfire and the marketplace, so that to bring into this framework the registration of sensors, services like purchase and exchange of data, and of course an add-on on the different visualization that we would like to have through the bridge between the Soxfire and the marketplace user interface. Some of those things you are going to see later on, also through the demo. Because we discussed a lot about the know your customer approach, an important aspect that was covered there is actually, just to give an example here, to have some processes for business verifying the identity of the different participants and assessing their suitability. The term comes from the banking sector, where you all are aware that the bank, in order for you to have a deposit there or any credit related service, someone has to be totally known for the specific bank service. So this means that there is a need for a user identification, but at the same time, for our purposes, to have as well privacy, because we don't want to reveal the identity of a specific user to the whole blockchain ecosystem, because once revealed there, it can never be forgotten, it can never be deleted. So an important aspect that, as you can see here, was actually to create such a service which applies directly on the quorum, on the MSec related blockchain, and have the different smart contract that is there in order to be implemented in a very transparent and efficient way through this. So as you can see here in this big picture, there is a process, a registration, where someone who would like to sign up in MSec has to undergo a specific registration process to know your customer user interface, upload different documents that validate his or her identity, which of course cannot be stored on the blockchain. So here is where you can see that there is a need for an additional external source of data, so external repository of data, where the different KYC documents have to be have to be encrypted, have to be saved for further reference, but somehow a unique ID has to be returned so that through this ID someone is visible and can have access to the quorum blockchain. As you understand, all this information should be encrypted and should be used in a way, in an intuitive way, in a user-friendly way that allows the different users to participate into it. Because you see that different addresses that form the ID of the participant are a big string, a big set of alphanumeric values where someone perhaps is not very familiar on how to use it. Of course, this might change in the future as people get more familiar, but you understand that since we would like to have this decentralized approach, different services should be there on how things are being registered or how the official documents, as you can see here, are being shared through this IPFS platform, and different methods that need to be there for users to upload the verification document or any passport or any other information that reveals his identity and validates his identity. And of course, when it is time to have additional services at the end, because what we would like to have is to have on one side the person who validates the specific authority, but then this information, this validation should be encoded on the blockchain together with any expiration date. Why? Because as we all know, the banks every let's say year or every 2 years they come back and say, okay, just give us now again your passport has changed, or if you have another permanent address or another telephone number, all this kind of stuff which somehow has to be updated. For these reasons, so that we do not lose the big context, once the documents are approved by the approving entity, this approval is being encoded in the quorum blockchain, but has together an expiration date where it will stop to be valid. So as you understand, this is something which is very important for the reasons of revoking this access to the blockchain and the whole set of services, while at the same time, of course, it can be renewed. But anyhow, this is let's say the good thing on programming things through smart contracts that allows you to run in an automated way and let's say give you all the necessary tools to further use this kind of decentralized applications. So important aspects here is not only the expiry date of users on the blockchain network, but also what we call this interplanetary file system, which supports and facilitates a fully decentralized application approach that we have followed. So it was one of the innovations that we had at the same time. Again, nowadays we see much more, let's say, startups trying to focus on the specific aspects, but at the time that MSec was conceptually founded, it was a very important aspect to define the borderline between what is going to be kept in a centralized approach and how this centralized approach can be further decentralized through a solution like the interplanetary file system. So that when we talk about decentralized applications, we have also the unique feeling that the data through the IPFS can be shared in a decentralized way, different data storage facilities, and allow this decentralization management being operated by a system like the IPFS. So there are a lot of ways to connect to all the different aspects. So now getting into some more technical details, I would like to invite my colleague George to say a few more words on those aspects. George?
Yes, so there are two main ways to connect the marketplace. So the first one is using the dedicated created API methods. So different methods are exposed in order to allow the connection integration with different services, sensors, and users who would like to provide sensor description data and other information. So some of the most important methods are the one that allow the creation of a new user, and then the user is able to register a new sensor by providing the different details such as where is the sensor actually located, the frequency, the type of the data. We can see on the right there is an array with different types of sensors that are supported, such as for temperature, for humidity, for pressure, and many others. So as Adonis presented, we have a dedicated created MSec token. So other methods allow the interaction with the smart contracts that handle all the tokens and the balances. And of course, methods that provide the users the ability to upload media items and data to IPFS. The second way to connect to the marketplace is by using the graphical user interfaces, as we can see in the next slide. So the marketplace has also been based on the Node-RED, which is a powerful visual tool, allowing the integration interaction with different APIs, IoT devices, and end users. So we can see flow from the actual development of the marketplace, and different user interfaces, integrating tools and technologies such as maps and other front-end features to enable end users, real entities, to interact with the marketplace. So I give now the floor again to my colleague, Adonis. Thank you.
Thank you, George. So, trying to have, let's say, also an overview of the different use cases that the project has, but also that are supported by different things that have been developed. We would like now to present you some of the use cases. It was supposed to be made also by our coordinator, Vanessa. She couldn't join us today due to an urgent issue. So I would like to invite Orpheus to hold only a brief overview of the different use cases that the project has, so that you have also an idea on how the different, of course, we have not presented all the tools, but how the different tools, including the Internet of Things Marketplace, is supporting these use cases. Orpheus?
Thank you very much, Antonis. So, as it was just mentioned, keep in mind that the use cases we are going to present are not all tailored to demonstrate the marketplace or the blockchain solutions from our side. Some of them were focused more on the hardware security solutions that MSec provides, others on the cloud-specific ones, and others on the blockchain. Nevertheless, what we did try to do was to include somehow the marketplace as a way to make available all the related data in each use case. So in all of them, you can find an application that may have more, let's say, impact in one case or less in another. So our first use case is focused in the city of Santander, and it's related to it's a classic, let's say, environmental monitoring scenario. In this case, we are focusing in parks, where we get two types of data sources, let's say. One is the crowd sensing devices. So we are able to identify how many people there are in a park by identifying how many mobile phones are in the range of the specific sensors. And another one is the other type of the sensors is related to environmental readings. So the idea here is that we make it possible for citizens that are visiting specific parks to scan a QR code at specific places of a park of special interest, having information about the fauna or the flora of the park, and also getting access to the readings of these sensors that were already suggested. So the security aspect here is focusing a lot on the devices security aspect, and we have quite a few methods for devices hardening in this case, for identifying attacks on the devices. We also have some cloud-based risks and threats, let's say, focus solutions that I can identify attacks. And we also have, yet again, the scenario of the blockchain as the marketplace where we have to share the data. The next use case, if you can go to the next slide, Antonis, thank you very much. The next use case is on the ehealth, let's say, domain, and it's focusing yet again on sensors, but in this case on sensors that are established on homes for elderly people that need some kind of monitoring from their relatives in order to keep them safe. So this scenario is focused a lot on a solution provided by Worldline, which is Connected Care, the Connected Care portal. So this is the final, let's say, application side, which can provide alerts, activity monitoring for these people, and is yet again based on several sensors and devices that are provided as infrastructure in these kinds of homes. Especially in this scenario where personal data are being handled, we are quite more careful, not quite, we have to be a lot more careful on this aspect. So several other features are being provided on top of this security, such as an off-chain, let's say, encryption of the data storage. Thank you. George is already providing some information on the chat too. So the idea here is that on the one hand, we store sensitive data, let's say off-chain, on an encrypted database, whereas on the blockchain, we store the proof of such readings and transactions and recordings, yet again using a hash. So in this case, what we are doing is trying to merge the positives of both the centralized, let's say, approach of storage and the distributed one with an on-chain, off-chain pattern. And at least for the scenarios that we've worked on, it has worked. It's a little bit more complex to do, but we get both positives. So, for example, it wouldn't be possible to store the actual data on a blockchain since this is both a resource and, let's say, storage intensive. On the next use case, yes, thank you very much, Antonis. This is a quite interesting scenario. It's one of my favorites, and it's a quite good example to show when we get partners between Europe and Japan. In this scenario, which is focused in Fujisawa, in this case, as a first step, we use what we call, let's say, urban environmental monitoring. So in this case, garbage trucks, which scan, let's say, the entire city every few days, are equipped with cameras, and these cameras can identify through the usage of neural networks whether, for example, some roads have to be repainted or fixed, or whether they are damaged, and so on and so forth. So as you can see on the top right image, where you can see a colored chart, it is possible to identify points which have to be yet again fixed or revisited, and so on and so forth. So that's a quite interesting moving sensing platform, and which is quite efficient considering that the garbage trucks can scan the entire city and very frequently. In this scenario, yet again, we have another new security, let's say, aspect that has to be tackled. The fact that the cameras, of course, unavoidably will record the faces of people or the IDs of cars, and so on and so forth. So a specific solution in this case, an indicative one, is the one you can see in bold, Anonymizer, which is able on the edge to remove personal data, images of people, and so on and so forth from the photos. Yet again, the pattern is the same when it comes to the actual data. We store off-chain the actual photos and the measurements from environmental sensors that are also on top of the trucks. And off-chain, we also keep the logs and transactions, let's say, and exchanges of the actual data. The next use case, which is our fourth one, has a similar, let's say, modus operandi, but instead of focusing on trucks, it's focusing on people. So the idea here is that people can also act as sensors through what we call a secure, effective, participatory sensing of city events. So, okay, this sounds quite fancy, but the idea is very simple. People are able to use their mobile phones in order to take photos of their own. There are scenarios where they may want to take photos in order to warn their municipality where there are problems, issues in the town. But in this case, this would be quite similar to use case 3. So we decided to make the scenario a little bit more fun. And so we turned the scenarios in a more social one, where people can exchange photos with each other that they want to share, and why not buy, create interesting groups, and so on and so forth. So something like a stock photo market. This is quite close to the marketplace because it's not about sensor data, but not too many people may want to use. But in this scenario, it can be used in festivals, in several active organizations, in social media, etc., by a great number of citizens. So this is also another interesting scenario from our side to include. And of course, all the previous privacy and security concerns that were identified are also included in this scenario. And finally, last but not least, our use case 5 is bringing everything together. So it's mainly focusing on what we present today, the marketplace, and finding a way to get all these different data sources from all these different scenarios and use cases in order to make a place for people to exchange, to buy, to sell, get access or information about and for data, not just in a specific city, but the focus here is to identify also scenarios where the data can be used between cities and provide some further impact for them. So even for use case 4, which is a more social one with people exchanging photos, we've also been investigating whether we could have, let's say, sister cities that could have similar events, and we could have groups of people from different countries sharing experiences, interesting experiences, showcasing the culture and so on and so forth. That's just an idea. Similarly, for the other more, let's say, smart city focused scenarios, you may also understand how important it is for smart cities to exchange data with each other, especially when smart applications are being used in order, for example, to identify specific patterns, or when machine learning is being used, and when a new application in a new city has to be established, it can always reuse the experience, let's say, of the same application from other cities. So that's the main scenario where marketplace can shine from our side, and where we bring everything together.
Thank you very much, Orfea. So I see, because we are running a little bit out of time, so I will skip, let's say, some of the, we plan to present you also some of our main scientific results that had to do with, for instance, different aspects of our implementation. Just to conclude also that some of the research that we at ICCS are performing with respect to all these kind of different aspects, I think it's also relevant, but it's something that we'll not get into detail, is actually also how to deploy the different new consensus protocols, where, as you know, is a very integral part of the blockchains. Like, for instance, also on how we can create this kind of consensus protocols following the trends on the proof of stake, or also following the trends that have to do with deployment of graph databases, which allow a lot of more, let's say, sophisticated techniques for data analysis, traversals of the different nodes in this graph continuum, which can provide also features for new security mechanisms, contributing to the different catastrophic crashes or other attacks that are there. But it's still, let's say, some of the research work that we are doing. So I don't want to take much of further time, because we would like also to allow some time for the demo and, of course, the Q&A sessions. Of course, feel free to make your questions as well in the chat. So we go a little bit to demos, to George and Petros, so that you can have also a hands-on view on the different aspects that we have developed. So George and Petros.
Yes, thank you. So as described, there are two ways to connect to the marketplace. The first one is using the API. The second one is using the front end. So the prepared demo focuses more on the front end, how an end user is able to register himself, log in, and use the different services provided. So Peter Skoufis, please, will present now the demo. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so I'll now share my screen. Thank you, George, for having me. Okay, just a moment. Okay. I think that everyone sees my screen now.
Yes, yes, Peter.
It's now time for a simple showcase of the marketplace's current functionalities. The marketplace is accessible from everyone's browsers and it's easy to use. So let's try it together. First of all, we need to access blocksplace.com/register. So I will just click register here and we will create a new user for me. I'm already registered. Oh, sorry. I'm already registered, but I will create a new user for the sake of this presentation. Okay, so we just fill the fields and click register. Okay. Okay, so I will just log in. And as we can see, the new account is already loaded with 1000 MSec tokens for use within the app. If these are not enough, all the users on this phase can request and get free MSec tokens through simply accessing the tab Add Tokens. I will click it now. So as you see, 100 tokens were added to my balance. We can just go back to dashboard and we can see that my balance is now standing in 1,100 MSec tokens. So now that we checked our balance and we have sufficient tokens, let's use them to purchase an image from the marketplace. I will just go to purchase images tab and we can browse all the images that are now uploaded on the marketplace. Okay, I really like this photo. It's from a beach in Spain, so I will buy it. We just click buy and we're transferred to a list of all our purchased images. We can also access our purchased images through the My Purchased Images tab. If I click here, we can see all the information of the purchased images as well as an image gallery. What is also interesting is that this photo is stored on the IPFS. If I get this string right here, which is the IPFS hash, and access my local IPFS node like this, I'll paste that here and I will access the photo, which is stored in the distributed IPFS network. So nothing is stored on our side, just the hash, and we can access the photo from the IPFS. So it's now time to actively participate in the network. I will upload an image on my own. So I'll click the tab Upload Image. Okay, it's loading. Nice. So I have an awesome image of the Greek sunset. So I will fill all the information here. So title, Santorini, Greece, sunset. Sunset in Santorini, Greece. Okay, I've tried it once. So let's tag it with the word Santorini and add the price to it. I think 150 is okay. So I will have to pick the file from my PC. Okay, sunset in Santorini, open, and then I click submit. Okay, so if, now the file is uploaded on the IPFS and also stored on the marketplace. If I go to the My Uploaded Images tab, I can see that all the information of the image that I previously uploaded, as well as my personal image gallery. So let's create another user for my colleague Orpheus. I know he will want to support me on the app and buy my image, so I will just log out and create a user for him. Okay, so it's...
Did you steal my credentials?
No. It will be a present, as I say here. Okay, so it's... Oh, I'm sorry. Orpheus. So we'll register us. Okay. So let's try to log in with him. Very nice. So Orpheus knows exactly the image that he wants to buy from the marketplace. So he will go to the purchase images tab, and in the tag section, he will fill the field with the word Santorini. He will click the button filter, and there it is, the photo that I just previously uploaded. So he will buy it to support me. But I also know that besides images, Orpheus is also interested in data sets and the sensor data aspect of the marketplace. So by accessing the Buy Dataset tab, he can view all the datasets that are now stored in the app. I know that he plans to create an app based on the Santander urban transport lines. So there is a relative dataset. So he will click Buy Dataset. And now, as we can see, he owns this dataset. Accessing my purchased datasets tab, Orpheus can view some basic information about his dataset and also download the dataset he previously bought or view it with a link. I'm not going to do it now, but most of the times it's in a JSON format. Okay, that's about it. I will log out of Orpheus. Orpheus, you're safe now. So that's the marketplace. We're trying every day to add new functionality and improve the user experience within the app. And we are inviting everyone to register, join, and take part in this image and data exchange. Okay, thank you. I will stop sharing now. Thank you, George. Back to you.
Thank you, Peter. So now maybe Antonis would like to continue.
Thank you, Peter, George, Orpheus, all. So I think that was all for today. We would like to have your questions now or something that you have not already expressed in the Q&A chat. Please feel free to direct your question now or something that
I see a question on the chat.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael, again for being so active. So is the IPFS same as the link that is being provided? So George, Petros, did you want to take this one? Or...
Yes, this is the IPFS. It's the one and unique IPFS that supports this kind of file system sharing across different sources of data that can be distributed in different locations, which are not only geographically dispersed, but also organizationally dispersed. So yes, this is the IPFS we are using. Any other question or comment? If it's not the case, I mean, please stay connected. We have a lot of channels. Perhaps Ines can also share those details in Twitter, LinkedIn, and different channels. Of course, our website as well. Stay tuned, and we would be happy to if you can join us in further events or in further follow-up, because the project ends typically in September, but definitely we have also a plan for further sustainability of our developments. It's something that we would like to keep on working. So I see another question. This support client certificates and Ethereum peer-to-peer networking nodes. I'm not sure that I understand the question. Yes, what we're doing there is not on Ethereum. We are doing this on Quorum. I don't know if your question is resolved, is answered. It's not on nodes. What we are doing is on alastria quorum nodes. So, or at least what, for instance, Petros has shown was on a quorum related node. I don't know if you can hear me, or if George, you can answer this by chatting.
Sure.
So thank you very much. Definitely, Ines can share with you also when we have the recording available, in case you would like to come back and have a further reference. But anyhow, we are still anytime open to your questions and your interest, in case you would like to get more familiar on the different things we are doing in MSec. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Just you asked me to say, so the recording will be available in the next few days. Just stay tuned.
Thank you, Ines. I would like to thank you all for participating. Have a nice day or evening in Japan.
Thank you very much. See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.